My name's Kristen Cox. I'm the Executive Director of the Department of Workforce Services in Utah. I work for the governor in Utah, and I'm speaking today about our experience with TOC, lessons learned, and a framework we've designed to make sure we're covering the basis with everything you got to do to manage a very large organization with a lot of moving parts, and challenges we still have and how we hope we can address those moving forward. I actually have other folks from our department here on the front row. Matt Larson, he's over all of our enterprise projects, and John Talcott, who is our CFO and over all of our admin, Mike Miller, who's over operational excellence, and John and Greg, who are our deputies. So we're really committed to this and brought some of our senior team and hope to figure out some kind of great fundraising bake sale we can do so we can get to Germany next year, because we're government. That doesn't work. Anyway, so yeah, I'm obviously blind, and I'm doing PowerPoint, which is funny, isn't it? So as I'm going through the PowerPoint, the goal of you guys is if I'm talking to a PowerPoint that doesn't exist, you can feel free to let me know that, all right? Let me tell you just a couple lessons to broach the context of this. There was a mentor of mine, his name was Dr. Kenneth Jernigan, who was really like the Ellie Goldratt for the blind community. He was brilliant, he was aggressive, he was candid, he was tough, and yet at the end of the day he had a heart of gold. And I had an opportunity to spend a lot of time with him, and I ended up working for his organization for a while. And there's two things I really learned from him that have translated into our work here. And one is that theory is great, but where you really learn the lessons is in practice. I had, before that point, started going blind and had been reading this book called Care and Feeding of a Long White Cane. Gave you all the technical stuff of how to use a cane. And there was such a difference between reading the book and being out on the street with your sleep shades trying to figure out how to cross an intersection. So theory is fantastic, and we read the goal, and we've been reading all of our books and velocity and doing all this stuff, but when we get into the guts of this and we get messy and sometimes we get lost, we have learned a tremendous amount. And when I finally figured out how to master the cane, it only came through a lot of getting lost experiences. But I never got permanently lost. That's good. The other piece that I really learned from him, it's not if something can be done, but how. It's really the essence of the cloud, that we always have alternatives to create win-win solutions. And so sometimes in my life I have to be very much a creative problem solver to do my life. And that's really the essence of how we've tried to take TOC and make it very relevant in an environment and government which government is inherently dysfunctional in many cases. And how do you make and really not just impose, but create what we've talked about the last few days, harmony, simplicity, all of those tenets that are embraced in TOC. So that's our journey today, and I'll spend some time talking about, that should be the agenda. Yep, it is. Look at that. I'm going to talk about a little bit who we are, some of the public sector demand for this, what our challenges are. But most of our time I'll be spending theory to action, our framework and how we're addressing these problems, some of the tools we need to continue to use and ones we need to develop, and then finally some of our results. So let's just first start with, this is a governing magazine. Last year we presented here at this conference at the plenary session. We had really great results, especially in a time with case loads going up. I'll talk about that in a second. This is just to say we're getting some attention nationally and within the state for applying TOC in government, and not just in your traditional government, right? Because sometimes government, they'll say, oh, well, TOC is really great if you're doing an IT project for a critical chain, or you're doing a big kind of construction project or quote-unquote widget building. But to really apply this to the whole service delivery model is really unique, and we're getting some traction on that, which we think is great. Let's go to our, we call this, they call it the will chart, I call it the donut chart. That says a lot about who I am. And this gives you a sense of what we do. In fact, we have over 2,000 employees. We administer over 100 different kinds of programs. we've bulked them into these 3 divisions: unemployment insurance, workforce development division, where we have a bunch of programs to help people get back to work, and welfare programs and food stamps, and eligibility, which is we do all the eligibility for the state, for example, with Medicaid and CHIP and just nameless programs. If you get any type of public assistance in the state, we administer and do the financials on it. So we just, during this last legislative session, they also moved all of housing under us. So all things to do with housing, as well as building water projects in rural Utah. So we are as diverse as building a water project in a townhouse or a town square in Utah, and as compared to relocating refugees. Very diverse, and they need to quit giving things to us. So, because we're trying to, we finally kind of get like this sense of simplicity and throughput and harmony, and boom, they throw something else at us, which is that always not if but how concept.
Success happens.
Yes, I guess. Some people get grumpy about it, but in fact, we'll talk about that later today. Gosh, what's this? The storm. So I'm so engaged with you guys, I forgot what I'm doing up here. This is the perfect storm. We really are counter-cyclical because we serve a lot of people who need jobs. And can you imagine in this economy, the global recession, our caseloads just went up significantly. Some cases, over 50%. When we started this, in one scenario in eligibility, we were at 58,000. We moved to 153. Now we're almost at 200,000 in cases. So when you see the results, which you'll see at the end, not just in that, but in some of our other areas, it's all in the midst of a perfect storm. And we're not unique. Government, even though we're seeing a formal end to the recession, government still has to be more efficient, right? I mean, they still really need to figure out a way to embrace doing things better. They talk a good game, right? All the political leaders, the political figureheads out there talk a good game, but I don't see the kind of vision to dig into the guts of the system and figure this stuff out and move it forward, and it's desperately needed. So government, when they start to do this, when they start to think about how do we do things better, they automatically tend to generate to lean. And we actually did a lot of Google searches with government lean and got hundreds of hits. State government, TOC, very, very few. You guys know that. It's not a surprise. So some of the reasons why, and we tried lean. We did so many Kaizens, I can't even tell you. we just did not by itself see the kind of bottom line impact to our overall operations and our results. We just didn't see it. Now, we do think there's some benefits to some of it, but only if it's done within TOC, and we can talk about that. But lean is there. Now, there are some reasons I think this is the case. And this is a marketing thing for TOC. When you go, what other agencies? Well, we've actually worked with the governor now, and we're now pushing out constraints management into other agencies in the state. We have an operational excellence initiative going on with the governor now. But when you talk to other state agencies and you say, you've got to really do theory of constraints. What does theory of constraints mean to the layperson who has no exposure to this world? I mean, they don't get it. They're like, theory of constraints? I don't want a theory. I want action. What is that? People can hear lean and they're like, oh, it's lean. You eliminate waste. I get that. I'm going to go for lean. It's the new, cool, hot, sexy thing up there. That's what I'm going to embrace. You talk about constraints management. Maybe you can start distilling it when you talk about, well, it's how you manage your bottlenecks. Gets a little closer, a little more relevant. It's a harder thing to package, in my mind. Maybe some of you guys have figured this out, and if you have, let me know. What's the 30-second soundbite for TOC? Do you say it's thinking tools? Hey, I've got a great idea. Go spend $50,000 on a vendor and learn how to think better. I mean, most people say, I think fine. I'm fine. I don't need any help with that. It's really hard to have the 30-second soundbite on this because the body of knowledge is so immense. And sometimes people want quick fixes. They can go with waste. I'm going to eliminate waste. They can catch that and move with it. So those are the challenges. Now, we're making headway in Utah and helping people get a better exposure to this. In fact, we really want to do a statewide conference just for government on TOC in the next few months so that we can really have a full day session to help people at local, county, state government get into the guts of this, the opportunity we all have when we're here at these sessions. Don't tell me. I have it in my head. So we're going to go to challenges.
Yep.
If I get all of this, I get a piece of chocolate at the end of this deal. So is my incentive, chocolate. So we do have some challenges in the government that's a little unique. One, it's the whole translation. How do you translate the terminology? Supply chain, MTO, MTA. We'll talk about this, the profitability model for businesses as compared to government. We're not a profit-driven entity. So how do you make those translations? We have so many stakeholders. Just in Medicaid alone, the state puts in 50% of the money. Generally, it's normally 50-50 match. There's some variations. Federal government puts in 50%. So the federal government has rules and regulations about Medicaid, but so does our state legislature. And no big shock, they don't always line up. And then we have stakeholders, and we have our users, and we have advocacy groups. We have the governor's office. There's so many variables and stakeholders involved with this. Purchasing is different. Just going out and trying to get a vendor. You got to go through this whole procurement rule. How we have to do our budgeting, our accountability. While we're moving to throughput, sometimes the way the legislature expects us to do our budgeting is anything but rational and efficient. So we're trying to overlay on our systems sanity in a world that seems very irrational. And that's an ongoing challenge. The bigger challenge, too, for us is, we'll talk about this a little bit in setting targets, is if we have 100-plus different programs, each one of those has its own set of requirements and its own set of policies and its own set of even IT development requirements, sometimes with the advanced planning documents, and even sometimes, not sometimes, always its own set of measures. So we're dealing with 100 different sets of measures. So when you add all of that, you're talking thousands of measures. And most of those are all really around local optimization and not throughput. So how do you overlay on your system real throughput thinking when the system itself is focused on sub-optimization, sub-optimization, sub-optimization? Makes it very interesting, but also great opportunities. So just to give you an example, in your world, it's our world now, but in the private sector world, it's around reducing inventory, reducing operating expenses, increasing profitability, which makes sense. In our world, we've had to translate that. We're not profit-driven. So in our world, we've translated in the reduce operating expenses, increase quality, and increase throughput and or velocity. So those are the measures that we really try to push and drive and speak to when we talk about any of our targets. They're all around these three areas. Operating expenses are cost, quality, throughput. But to get to that, am I in the success framework now?
You're on set measurable.
So to do all this, because there's so many moving parts, in my head I used to have this acronym CIOBPPP, which meant nothing to anyone, and it was ridiculous. So we translated it into this, and it's a little cheesy, but it works. We call it the success framework, or the success fundamentals. And it's an acronym, SUCCESS, stands for something each, and I'll go through that. But it's the way we talk about things at our level. It helps us keep in mind all of the different parts we need to think about and be mindful of to manage our system and to drive to continuous process improvement. So the first one, it says targets. It really should say set the goal and target. So the first thing we have to do in our organization is absolutely clarify what the goal is. That's tough when you've got 100-plus programs, especially now when you're doing water sewer projects in the midst of this. We haven't figured that one out yet. But what is the goal of government? It's not that hard to figure out when you think about it. It's that thing of pushing through the complexity and actually believing that simplicity is possible. And we've been able to set that and I'll show you in a little bit our DWS, our entire agency throughput operating strategy, which pulls all of this together. But at the end of the day, all that we do is to help stabilize our economy and get people jobs. That's what we do. And we have to keep that on the forefront, because we can get wound around an axle if we don't have clarity what our end goal is. We have to set targets. Now, I do agree that I think Lisa talked about it yesterday in her transformational tree session, that I guess she said that Dr. Goldratt at one point said, we can go beyond just the sky. It's not that the sky is the limit. We can go way past that. And I believe that. What we do also believe is that you have to be able to celebrate successes with your staff and help the organization understand that we've made progress. So we do set specific targets that we're at the minimum trying to achieve. So for last year, for example, it was a reduction of operating costs by $9.2 million. It was 142. That's just, our budget overall is over $2 billion. But a lot of those are federal funds, and then we have this general fund piece. So we had a 9.2 reduction and a general fund piece, which is about a 14% reduction in that area, and an increased quality from 90 to 95%. Very clear, concise things. So at the end of the day, when we hit those, we could celebrate, acknowledge, and recognize. I think if you have this ongoing marathon with no end in sight for a long time, it's hard for people to get really excited and motivated about it. But when you can say for the next year, we have a long marathon, but for this next year, we're going to at least celebrate when we get to mile 6. And that's been really important for us. So as we go through this, and the other thing this is just so important for in an organization with so many different kind of cultural aspects to it, it does create unity of purpose, and it does create unity of vision. It really galvanizes people around something bigger just than their local division or their local unit. Our biggest challenge in setting targets, because I'll talk about what we're doing well and what our challenges are, is again overlaying these measures with what all the other measures we have to do. So TANF, Temporary Assistance to Needy Families, is a big program. Our goal there is to help people get jobs and to become self-reliant. It's what we do. The federal measures are not anything to do with that. They're about participation, caseload participation, verified participation. Maybe kind of they may look at employment, but not really. It's around reduction of your caseload. So we still have to report on that, and if we don't report on that and do well in those areas, we can get sanctioned and get in trouble. So how do you, in an organization, drive to throughput and then keep these other measures on your radar screen and do with that? So that was the conflict. Can conflicts be broken? Heck yeah. So what we believe in this now is that if our throughput and our key levers and our key strategies are sound, they will elevate our federal measures. If we're doing a good job in our strategies and strategy tactics trees, which we need to get a lot better at, I'll talk about that in a second. If we do well those and our assumptions are correct, then it will elevate all of our other measures. So in Workforce Investment Act programs to get people back to work, lots of measured unemployment, retention, you have to look at adult, dislocated, youth, blah, blah, blah. If we're doing well at the core of how we get people to work, we believe those measures will elevate. That just by default, but we'll do better in those areas. That's our assumption. We'll test it out and see if that's true. The next thing after setting targets, goals, clarity on purpose is this use thinking tools, which we all know about. It's everything from looking at root cause to bad multitasking to full kit to looking at hidden capacity to looking at taking away before adding more. Government, we're notorious for there's a program. What do? What does government do when they have a need? You guys know this. I'm not answering this. You have to tell me. What do? They go where? Where do they go? And what do they ask for?
Money.
They ask for more money, right?
Yeah.
I need a new IT system. I need more money. I need more FTEs. They always add before looking first at your hidden capacity and bringing it down. So we've done a lot of work on this, and we'll talk about how we've worked with staff and getting all these thinking tools in play. They've been so helpful. Drum, rubber, rope, understanding where constraint is, knowing how to use clouds. All of those things have helped us become a little better at what we do. Challenges with this and things we need to still work on is how do we embrace strategy and tactics trees and do a better job with those and really embrace them? How do you actually then take a strategy and tactics tree and communicate in a way to over 2,000 employees? We do use a throughput operating strategy. I'll show you that in a second. And finally, how do you train over 2,000 employees plus with a turnover rate, and at what level does each individual need to know? Do some just need to know the concepts of constraints and drum, buffer, rope, and the 5 steps of identify, exploit, subordinate? What do they need to know? And then as you go higher up, what do the managers need to know? What does the senior management team need to know? And how do you actually pull that off? That's the roadmap we're trying to figure out. I know there was some conversation, I think in TOC community, and I'm not sure if I'm wrong on this, I apologize, that somehow if you just have a measure, that will drive the behavior of an organization. I think that's partially true. My experience has taught me something different, that the measure may tell you what to do, but the how and the 3 whys, which we've been talking about, aren't answered in that. And so helping people get the bigger picture of the thinking tools and why we use the thinking tools and why we're doing constraints management is so critical. And we'll talk in a little bit about how do you actually secure the hearts and the minds of people. If you just have their mind but not their heart and their emotion, I think we've missed part of the solution. So using thinking tools, but then how do we roll this out? What's our roadmap for organizational change? Mike Miller, that's your job. He's new here with us. He's got to figure that out. Next thing is create your system. We deliberately put create your system first before create your organization. Typically in government, again, and this is probably in other organizations as well, my experience is in that the leadership comes in and the first thing they want to do is move the org chart around, right? Like that's the big value added is moving the box from here to there and putting a new name on it. We'll talk about why we actually have this in sequence, but creating your system is important and really understanding, which you guys all know and have taught us, and we continue to learn from you guys on this. Where's your constraint? How do you exploit it? What do you, are there other pieces of your system, and how do you subordinate those? And really, what does good look like? We've used, we work with the Fox group, Kevin Fox and Bob, and they've been great. We use a throughput operating strategy, which is great. It's a one-pager of what good looks like in our organization. I think that should be a picture of it. And so it's really simple. This is just for eligibility services. I'll show you our whole department one towards the end. But this is just our eligibility services one. It says in one page, this is what good looks like. Here's the measures. Here's what we need to keep doing to get better and better at this. And then we have to share and distribute and be very redundant in communicating on this piece. Where we're weak, so this has been fantastic. Our goals of hitting quality and costs in a time when our caseloads were like going like this, and we were able to reduce our costs significantly, was in large part understanding where our constraint was, being able to exploit that, driving to it, and staying focused. But what's interesting is this concept we call capacity flow. Been struggling with it for the last few months, saying, okay, well, we can have like on a piece of paper a system, but how are we going to really know what's going on with our control point? Are we starving it? Are we overwhelming it? What are we going to plan on? Is there some way to plan what's going to happen in the future? Are all of our activities actually showing real, true capacity? We can have measures, but every time I want to look at it, you got to pull like reports from everyone. How do you, in real time, understand what in the heck your constraint's doing? You guys have that figured out. You guys use supply chain and really understand how to monitor that. So our big challenge, we call it capacity flow. We came here and saw Symphony. That's an interesting piece of software, or things like that. How can we take the lessons learned in supply chain? If it's Symphony or some other kind of product, or we build it ourselves, or whatever that looks like, how do we in government, in a service model, create a way to monitor our throughput, our capacity, and what's happening with our constraint, and really knowing that we're in fact subordinating. We think we are subordinating in some cases, but we're not sure, because we have all the data, but how do we pull it all together in one place to really watch this? So that's a big priority for us this next year, is really capacity flow monitoring, so we can make very good decisions at management about where we're going to allocate time and resources. So that's really important for us. Next piece is create your organization, which I'm fascinated by two things on this. One is the organizational strategy and tactics tree and how that could apply and be relevant for us. So we'll be learning about that this year. We do think organizational design should come after you understand your system, simply so that it can support and align with it. Been really intrigued the last few days with this idea of harmony. We're pretty good right now at getting our control point working well. Where we still need improvements is the other parts of the system harmonizing and supporting the control point, our constraints. We can do better with that. Our organization should in fact reflect that. We've made great strides. We've been able to reduce layers of management, increase our spans of control. We're much more efficient in what we do with the organization. People have a sense of, have you guys all heard the blue light story? Yeah, we're really clear on what our blue light is and how people need to organize around that. But we want to get better about aligning our organization around strategy and not just by your traditional programmatic silos, right? Because if you look in government, they'll have a department of food stamps, a department of human resources, a department of job training. Those are all driven by these programmatic silos that push down the stovepipes like this. What we want to do in our organization is to be a little more thoughtful about it. So what is our throughput, and how do we align both our organization and our staff to push through those stovepipes and get real throughput? It's an important part. We're going to continually get better at it. But let me give you a really concrete example. We have, in our eligibility services, again, we make determinations and administer funds for people who are needing public assistance. We right now have people working on their blue light, which is making a determination, a quality determination. We want to more and more exploit that, give them more tools, they can offload stuff that they don't need to worry about. And as we look at that, we find opportunities through using interference diagrams of work that they just don't need to be doing that we can offload to other workers. So we find, like data entry, we don't need to pay these kind of people that need pretty good analytics and good thinking to do data entry. So how do we offload that and create another set of workers that Matt Larson, I love the name Matt's come up with this, called drivers, who can do that kind of data entry work. So that's really offloading and supporting our control point. Now what's interesting about that is if I were in a lean world and I now had 2 people touching the application, would that be right or wrong? Be wrong, right? Because I would be looking at handoffs. I'd be looking at maybe over-processing. I could be looking at quote-unquote rework. So the real question is, if you just take the lean concept and apply it by itself, those kind of questions become a little trickier. But if you understand what your control point is and how you're trying to maximize and exploit that, and then to align your work and your organization to support that, those decisions become much easier to understand and absorb why those are important. The other piece to this that I think is sometimes missing in lean, there's still great stuff in lean. You'd want to target it and not use that to eliminate waste. But sometimes I found that if you just talk about, well, too many handoffs is wrong, or rework is wrong. Well, we know rework is wrong. Too much transportation moving around is wrong. What it does is we try to treat the symptoms. Oh, okay, just reduce the handoffs. Rather than looking at the root cause, which we've been learned or trained to do now in TOC, to understand that the handoff maybe isn't the problem, but the quality of the handoff is the problem. And then really thinking about a cloud or a current reality tree to understand the root cause of why the handoff is problematic and how to solve that. So that's the kind of thinking we're able to bring now as we try to organize around our strategy, which is based off of good thinking and our thinking tools. Okay, so this next one should be, don't tell me, E, engage your staff. All right, so we talked about winning the hearts and minds of your staff, because you can give them a measure and we can tell them, here's your blue light. And we have some of our staff who are great and they get that, and we have some staff that are grumpy because they don't want it. They like the old way, the old very safe way, not, just do my own thing. I don't want to be caught up in all this. So how do you win the hearts of these people? And you want their hearts because I think when people are there emotionally and mentally, they just do a better job. They're happier. It's a better culture. You just want that. So there's a lot of things you do on that. One is we've trained all of our staff on the basics of TOC. Okay, just the very basics. We think we need to, like I said earlier, get much better at who needs to know what and when, and being systematic about that. So we've trained them so at least they're oriented. We have the TOS. You saw the eligibility TOS. We have the department. We published that. We gave them a chance to have feedback on that, to buy into it, to say, yeah, we agree with that. We made modifications based off their feedback. What we need to do is continue to be redundant about this is our TOS. We can sometimes put it out there, say we did it, and then we don't talk about it anymore. So how do we continually have redundancy? Early wins is huge, right? Our staff need to see out of the gate that what we're doing isn't just best for the throughput of the organization, but their lives at their jobs are better because of it. The frustrations they have with some of the screens and things like that, that we may say, and I'm kind of dogmatic about this. If we have IT projects or suggestions coming up, they really have to align with our levers, and I'll talk about those in a little bit, but our levers are our key strategies, or we just don't want to support them. But sometimes, and Matt did this last week, we go here from fields out in the field, these little things that are driving them crazy, and it may not for us have the biggest impact on our throughput, but you got to once in a while let them know that you hear them, that that's a problem, and we need to fix that. But we also push back and we say this: ask what you can do today. Sometimes staff can say, and I'm sure you see this in a manufacturing plant as well, I need you to fix the machine, I need a new machine, I need more training, I need this. That's great. You tell us what you need from us to help eliminate barriers so you can do your focus on your blue light, and we can get increased throughput. But what we also want to ask them is, what can you do today? What is it that's within your control to make a difference on? When you ask that and insist on that, wouldn't you guys say it's amazing how much stuff comes out of that? I mean, there's just so many things that they can problem solve on their own to figure out. We do expect that every week our staff all across the state are doing what are called throughput rounds, where they understand our throughput goals, they understand our key levers or strategies, and then they ask the question, what can we do today within our unit to make that happen, and what do we need support on from the state or those folks in the Ivy Tower? What do they need to do for us so that we can get our jobs done? So that's big. What are other things on that I was going to say? Oh, pay for performance, yeah. And I know this may be a little interesting concept in the TOC world, because you don't want to just focus on the local plant. What we're trying to do with pay for performance is to get focused on their blue light. State government, just to fire someone is really difficult. And we've actually created a whole pay for performance plan where if you want to come into it, if you focus on your blue light and do that really well, which is the blue light is support the throughput of the organization, you can make more money. But to go into that, you have to kind of give up this, there's 6 levels of grievance rates right now in the state. You have to give up at least one of those grievance rates so that we can have some agility. If you're a good performer, we're going to reward you, we're going to keep you. We want to reward top performers. In government, what we tend to do if somebody's a top performer is we give them more work. That's just how it works, the dynamic. Because we don't have, especially in the last 5 years, money for bonuses. Sometimes the taxpayer gets really leery if we pay out bonuses or big commissions. Things like that you can see in the private sector. Profit sharing. If we can actually tie it to their productivity and demonstrate increased throughput, which we've been able to do, our folks that are paid for performance, their throughput's up 154% compared to the non-folks, and their quality is better. So we can reward them, create a good cultural shift, help people understand the blue light's important. We're going to compensate you for that, and hopefully create a better morale. We're not just going to require you to do more stuff. We'll try to eliminate, offload, make your lives better that way. And in the meantime, we're not just going to throw more work at you. You'll get rewarded for that. Yeah.
Question. What is the grievance rate?
Oh, is that Bill Taylor?
Yeah.
You have to ask it in Portuguese.
Okay.
No, I'm just joking. Estou brincando.
Okay.
What's the grievance rate? So, basically, in government, somebody's job is seen as almost private property. It's the way, and we're not a union state. Utah's a right-to-work state. We're very conservative. I'm very conservative fiscally, so we're a right-to-work state. But still, so you can't just fire them because you can't just say, I don't like your performance. John, he's at will, which means he's appointed by me. I can say, John, I don't like what you're doing. I can just fire him. In state government, you have to put them on first a corrective action plan. The first corrective action plan used to be 90 days. If they failed that, they want a second corrective action plan, which is another 45 days. Then after that, they would have to go through they would go through this other process to human resource management, to their supervisor, to their manager. They could grieve it to me and say, I would hold like a quote unquote hearing to say I agree or disagree with the manager's decision. And then if they didn't like that, they would go to a third outside entity called the Career Service Review Board, which in 7 years of the department's history, we've never lost a case because we don't let it go that far. We're very, solid on our HR rules. But it's expensive as all get out because you got to have attorneys to represent you if it even goes to the Career Service Review Board. So in pay for performance, we've eliminated the Career Service Review Board. Your grievance rights ends with me. Some of our staff, you would not believe it. Some are great about it, some have freaked out. Some will not go to pay for performance with the idea of making more money for losing that last grievance rate. This is ubiquitous in government, and we are trying to change that culture to say we have to have stellar performance to actually give value to the taxpayer and to our customers. We're making those changes, but it's a really interesting dynamic.
Well, they prefer satisfaction over security over satisfaction.
Yeah, some of them do. Now, some of them, when we've had some risk takers, and some of our newly hired people that haven't been in this culture for 25 years, go right into pay for performance, and they do a great job, and they love it, and they get more money, and they are really leading the curve. We watch them to see what's possible. When we look at capacity, there's about 16% of these guys that are just pushing the edge of capacity. There's some of those guys are making 4 times the amount of determinations throughput that our folks on the lower end are making. So one of our strategies is really around employee success. If we can just get a percentage of our employees, of 10% of them, to move into this higher range of performance, our throughput with doing nothing else just goes out the roof. With adding nothing more to our system, no new IT, no new interference programs, just getting them within the existing model to perform better makes a big difference. So it's a really interesting dynamic in government. Lots of fun.
Can you also give us a brief explanation what is the blue light system?
The blue light? So yeah, blue light is actually, it was a story Kevin Fox told us, which we love. It's a story of him going into a plant, and there were guys welding, and they would weld, and then they would stop, and they would go get the bumper, bring it over, do some welding, then take off plastic from the bumper. So essentially, what their real goal was, the goal was to weld. The more blue light they had on, that's the job they were supposed to do. Instead, they were just being distracted by all these other ancillary jobs. And their ability to just focus on blue light to reduce bad multitasking was really being diminished. So when we talk about blue light in our organization, it's like your goal is a quality determination. How do we minimize status calls, all the calls you have to take? How do we minimize data entry? What are all those things that are helping you or hindering you from focusing on your blue light to prevent bad multitasking? So that's what we mean by blue light. So with our eligibility workers, our pay for performances, quality determinations. We have a benchmark. If you make more of those, and you have to hit certain quality standards, right? Because quality is one of our 3 focus areas. You're not quality. You can't get it. But if you meet your quality standards, and then for everything above the benchmark, you get percentage of that, and we save money. It's a win-win. They get more money. We save money. Our operating costs, based off these pilot projects we've had with pay for performance, are down significantly, because we can, for 1 FTE. If that 1 FTE is even doing twice the work of another FTE, we can pull back an FTE cost, which is about $60,000, push out $30,000 to help compensate people and still save $30,000. So it's a good model for us. So this staff piece I can't underestimate, especially if you're in a large organization. Speaking to them, redundancy, throughput rounds, back and forth communication, early wins. When they have a problem, they need to see we're responsive to it. It's not just about what we need, it's also addressing what they need to be successful. Synchronize your IT projects and your policy. I'd also say on this practices. So we can have all these great initiatives, and how do you actually synchronize then all of this other stuff that you need to support those? So we have implemented critical chain, which is great. What's the hardest thing about critical chain for us in government? Choke it less, right? I mean, sometimes the tendency is you want to do all of the projects. It feels good. It feels good to say yes to everyone. It's really hard sometimes to say no. And to get people to believe that if you start later, you will end sooner. That doesn't sound right to people. So to choke it, Matt's been here and he said, we got to even choke more. We came away from the conference last year going, oh my gosh, choke, 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 choke. And then we can see ourselves starting to creep again. So we have to just choke, choke, choke. We also integrate Agile. If any of you are familiar with the Agile development cycle, which is we use critical chain to figure out when we're going to put something in and what the buffer should be, but we use Agile for day-to-day implementation to help people stay very focused. It's been an interesting combination. We've created that combination about 6 months ago, and our defects going into the system are significantly down, and we're now so efficient in our IT delivery that it used to be operations used to be saying, I need this, I need this, I need this. Now operations is saying, slow down. Your IT projects are coming out so quickly, we can't absorb and train on them quickly enough to keep up with that, right, Matt? Yeah. So that's our challenge now, is that we have so much efficiency in our IT shop. But we do have, where's the binder, Mike? Do you have the binder?
No.
It's okay. We have a binder that we go through our TOS, our throughput operating strategy, what are our key levers or our key strategies, and if you want an IT project or a policy change, it has to align and support with those things. So we've created governance structures and ways of reporting that help support and synchronize this, because if you have, if we talk the good talk, but we aren't paying attention to these two things, we really undermine ourselves. I feel like we're really solid on the IT. I feel we can get better in the policy. To give you an example of how policy works in government, let's just take Medicaid, healthcare reform in the country. Most of you are aware of that. Take out the thing if you agree or disagree with it. Here's how policy works. Congress will pass it. Most of them don't even know what's in it, right? We know that. So they pass it, don't read it. It goes to Health and Human Services, big, huge organization. Then they have a deputy. Under the deputy, it goes to Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, who has a boss, who then takes the policy and moves it down to their regional national office. They have folks in D.C., folks in Baltimore. Then it goes down to their Denver office. Then it comes to the state. Then our legislature integrates policy. Then it comes to us. Then under me, there could be 5 people down that are writing procedures and policy to interpret the federal policy, and I don't even know about it. The layers of policy development, it's scary. And you could have people in your organization 5 layers down making decisions on what the policy of your organization is and have no idea what they're writing. And you've got timelines. You've got deadlines on when you need to implement certain policy mandates, or your funds can get ripped from underneath you. If we don't have certain things up and running with healthcare reform by 2014, we'll see what happens with the Supreme Court decision. Utah can be in jeopardy. So that policy piece is big. We do have a meeting now that we meet monthly. We've actually put Matt here over all of our enterprise policy and IT projects so that we have someone watching this. I'm now becoming, by design, a bottleneck for policy. They have to come up through the ranks for us to review and look at policy. Some people, I'm sure, right, John, probably don't like that. But as we're trying to really align our policy with our IT and our operations and our training and our throughput, we are kind of by design becoming a bottleneck. I don't know if that's right or wrong. We have to figure this one out more, and I think this requires a lot of good thinking tools, not just in our agency, but across this entire country. Because you will have bureaucrats 20 layers down in an organization dictating what a state should do, and there's no transparency around it. So it's a very problematic and, quite frankly, disturbing to me. Final thing is stay focused. We hear a lot about that, right? That management can, in fact, become the bottleneck. I am a big bottleneck. I will acknowledge that. It's hard. One of the mantras I've tried to tell myself is, if I can't articulate what we're doing in this organization clearly and succinctly, then I am spread too thin. If I don't know what our key levers are in each division and a sense of what their priority projects are, I'm spread too thin. So we've actually set up weekly meetings. We call them our TOS, Throughput Operating Strategy Report Out meetings. We cycle through every division where we sit down and have the discussion around, here's your TOS goals, here's your levers, what are your projects that you're spending time on, what do you need from us, what can you just do on your own, what kind of cover do we need to give you, what do we need to get out of your way. So we try to do that every week to stay focused. We also have something, is this lever control? Yeah. Called lever control. And I don't know if we'll always have this, but again, a lever is a key strategy. With the minimal amount of pressure, you can get maximum output, right, if you think of the fulcrum concept. So we would get lots of projects that people would want to do in our agency, which is great. People are innovative. Let's do this project. And they would all sound great. But a lot of it was around local optimization, not throughput. So we've kind of put a kibosh on that. But we would get the project, and we wouldn't ever see it show up in our bottom line. And let's put $3 million into this new IT project, because everyone, I get that's not always the solution, but somebody would want to come do a great project. So we're saying no. We're going to have 3 columns. We're going to have backlog, work in progress, and then in production. And when you move it into work in progress, you have to tell us how that's going to support our quality, our throughput/velocity, or our operation costs. And we actually are going to make you come and tell us if it's doing that. So we actually have a template, kind of a template that will show, here's how this is going to impact it. So as we do e-notifications, and we expect that it's going to reduce our fixed costs around printing and mailing, we say, Matt, $3 million we're spending right now printing and mailing, what's it going to save us? He says 1.5. He's on the hook now in front of all of you for $1.5 million printing and mailing. So we track that. Now, hopefully, when we get better at our capacity flow and monitoring the exploitation of our control point, we can see that just happening. Until we have that sophistication, we're going to track it. We actually have a savings ledger. We call it that because stuff in government can disappear. It's weird. People can say, I did this and I saved my division $3 million. Well, it's local optimization. We all know that, right? So you're not seeing it in your overall throughput. But sometimes, even in their own division, when we would look this in the past, it would just disappear. It gets eaten up in the vapor of government. So we now say, no, we're going to really try to embrace throughput accounting. We're so don't even know entirely what that is yet. That's one area we really got to pay attention to. But how do we track our fixed costs, and then how do we track our throughput costs associated with what our throughput is? And we actually then have a savings ledger about both of those to wash those, and then to make sure as we get more efficiency in our throughput measures, we're not cost shifting and increasing our fixed costs. We want to bring both down. So we have hopefully tools, techniques, governance structures in place to stay focused. It's always something we have to be reminded of. We feel like we're always putting out advocacy groups or political stuff or the legislature or whatever. There's just so many polls. How do you use your time and focus on the important and not always the urgent? That's a matter of discipline and vision. Yeah, sorry, Bill.
Is your throughput measured in number of determinations? Or what's the unit of throughput?
So we look at a few things. We look at cost per determination, and we're just counting the costs associated with the determination. We look at total determinations by FTE. So when we started this, we were at 5.6 determinations per FTE per day. We're now at 7.2, and our goal this next coming year will be 8.5. Then when we get this capacity flow, the goal is then to aggregate all of that into our full capacity of how many determinations. I mean, it's not hard. You just take the math and add it up. How many determinations we can make per month as juxtapose that with the applications coming in. We sometimes have peaks and valleys in our applications coming in, so we're trying to smooth that out. And we think, maybe Symphony or something like that could help us. So that's how we look at it. And then the other thing that we so love about what you guys have taught us is touch time, right? Because we also look at velocity / part of our throughput is how much product you get out, but over how much time. Our federal measures are around, depends on the program, but on average 30 days. We're below that. We're between 14 and 18 days on average. So we're below that. So that's why initially we focus on cost and quality. But now that we've got kind of those, we can always get better, but we have those stabilized, we're going to really be looking at our touch time. And what government never does is look at touch time. What they do is look at lead time, touch time, and combine it. So they'll say from date of application, you have 30 days to get this processed. It could be that 98% of that is us waiting for the customer to send us verifications. And what is our real touch time, and how do we monitor and track that and reduce what we can control and then support and create initiatives to get the customer to put this for? I want to have in the next year a reliable organization when it comes to the time we deliver the product. We vary on that. We're good at our costs now. We're good at our quality. But I want the customer to call and say, look, to be able to look or to know, well, if I get my verifications in, they can turn this down around, plus a buffer. So let's say our touch time is a day and we put 2 more days for a buffer. They can turn that around in 3 days. And I want to get that with your guys' standard of 98% of our touch time reliability. Would that be crazy? Be awesome. I think I just went backwards. I don't know about that. We have too much work in government, man. This is endless. This is the thing you guys talk about, blue ocean. government. Woohoo! Just everywhere. I mean,
Have you seen the win-win-win program of Japan? Have heard of it?
Is it Uji? Yuji.
Yeah.
I've heard his name, and I talked to Rami. I'm like, dude, you got to connect me with this Uji guy.
Well, he's going to be in your panel later.
Oh, is he? Okay.
But the whole thing is, the thing that came out of the implementation of critical chain in public works in Japan was that the government officials discovered that they were the big holdup. And this is where they came up with a 24-hour response program.
Awesome.
And in your case, it's the reverse. You need to have the 24-hour response program from the consumer, and you promise them a 24-hour response or a 36-hour or 3-day response or whatever. If you get that thing working, and if you can make it work from what you're saying, this could be awesome because it will change totally. It's no longer 30 days from the time of original application. It's 3 days from the last time you gave me any information.
Yeah, and if I were a customer, I would feel empowered because I would know.
I determine when I get my benefits.
Yeah, that's it. I determine if I want my benefits next week, wow, I have a responsibility in this. I'm not just going to sit here and blah, blah, blah. We'll know, and we'll know our responsibility. They gave it to us. Wow, we have a 3-day. So I want a reliable organization, so I need to find him. Everyone tell him to find me.
Soon enough.
Okay, good.
And then you will never get rid of it.
That's so funny.
If you find him, you'll hear it.
I'll hear. Okay. I don't know. There's so many accents here. I'm just feeling overwhelmed with voice fluctuations in this group.
Results.
You're at 10 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes, so I can hurry and wrap up. So results. This is our cool. We call it our cool chart because we think it's pretty cool. It shows our caseloads going up significantly. Our costs going down. It does not show our quality on this, but our quality went from 90 to 95%. Our cost of determination went from a high of over $56 a case. Now we're down to 35. We'll save by the end of this next fiscal year. And this is just general fund dollars, okay? We have a $2 billion budget. This piece right here pulls down federal and state dollars. So just on the general fund side, we'll save $26 million. And it will be, by the end of this fiscal year, our FTEs will be down over 33%. My goal is that we get it down to 50% in our operating costs, which in this recession, most every state in this environment was out asking for millions, and we reduced by 26.
Through attrition.
Through attrition. Planned attrition, no layoffs. We could think way far in advance. We had planning around it. We knew what our average attrition rate. We just held the vacancies and didn't backfill. Our biggest expense is in our FTEs. And then our quality, of course, went up and significantly. So that's fantastic. We maintained our timeliness, that velocity, reliability standard. But as Bill has so aptly put out, we can really increase our reliability. And that'll be a big focus for ours moving forward. Some other results are great. Unemployment insurance, we're #1 in the country in all 4 divisions. We're the only 4 state in the history of unemployment insurance for 75 years. Mike Miller should get some kudos for this too. That got the triple award, meaning we won in 3 categories for delivering unemployment insurance. Mostly states will win in 1 or 2. We won in all 3. First time in the history of the unemployment insurance. For timeliness and our costs, and able to maintain our trust fund in a time when that wasn't going well for the rest of the country. And we're the 49th lowest duration rate. That means the time people stay on unemployment insurance, the quicker they get off, the quicker they get into the job market. And anyway, so we have some great results on that. And there's some other areas too. But for eligibility, this is our case study. Our goal originally last year, we came and said, oh, we hit our 9.2. Then we first hit 6.5, then 9.2, and then now we've just totally blown it out of the park. Quite frankly, when I'm starting to look at this stuff even more with better doing capacity flow management, we're just scratching the surface. We're just scratching the surface. Let's talk about... Yeah, okay, that just says that it happened, because if it's in the press, it's true, right? So, some of our targets moving forward. Well, our reliability is huge. Where's our DWS TOS?
You passed it. Yeah.
Did I pass it? Where is it?
Go, keep going. Right there. There you go.
This, I want to make sure you guys see this. So we took all of our 100 programs plus, and we're trying not to impose simplicity. We honestly are trying to create it. It's hard. But said, ultimately, this is our process. Quit with all the craziness. Somebody comes in, they apply for assistance. I don't care if they're applying for Medicaid or food stamps, and they don't even know they should be looking for work. We're going to try to move them into our workforce system. And if they're ready for work, we'll start connecting with employers. If they're not ready for work, We'll train them and get them job prepped. We have a lever on the top about supporting economic growth. We can't create jobs. We're government. We get it. We can create a good environment where businesses want to come. Utah has fared really well compared to most states in this country. We understand it's part of a global phenomenon going right now. We're not an island to ourselves, but we have the third highest job growth rate, one of the lowest unemployment rates, and we've been able to weather the storm fairly well. How do we continue to create an environment where businesses want to come, where we can create jobs, where we can deal with skills gap as one of our big levers? How do we know? I've loved the term replenishment. How do we replenish? We were just talking to Al and Bernard yesterday. How do we replenish quickly? That we want to do a whole strategy and tactics tree around this lever of skills gap. It's huge. And we do all the labor market information, all the economists are under our shop. So we predict what jobs are going to happen in the future. We do these 10-year predictions. We feel good about 2 to 4 years out, max. 10 years, we're just blowing smoke. How do we then really become smart at replenishing in our higher ed systems, which can take 2 years just to improve curriculum? How do we get better at that? So this is how we've said, you're coming in for 100 types of programs. It could be low-income housing. Could be anything. We're going to help. We're going to stabilize you. And then we're going to move you into self-sufficiency. Some of our folks, if they're going into nursing home care and long-term care, that's a different track. We understand that. But we believe that people who should work or can work or are able to work should work. It's best for them, their families, the community, our state, the taxpayer. That's been a fundamental cultural shift in our agency. We are not about just providing eligibility services and making sure you're eligible for Medicaid. That's an important step. We have federal obligations around that. But we're here to move you beyond it, and we believe it's possible. So targets, we've talked about those. That's it. That's what we do. And we have a lot still to learn from all you guys. We appreciate the mentoring we've had from so many in this room and how much you guys motivate us to become better and better at what we do. Do you guys have any questions?
How can we help you? How can we, the TOC community, help you?
Well, so we need to get better at having training for organizations. I mean, we've been looking here like there's the basics and then the fundamentals. How do you roll that out to an entire organization, and what and when and at what levels and who needs to know what? We're trying to create this kind of on our own right now. And I do believe, again, going back and winning the hearts and minds of people is important. So that whole organizational shift is important for us. We need to get better at learning and maximizing strategy and tactics trees. We talked to Alan about that yesterday. Hopefully he's going to...
He's here.
He's here? Oh, Alan. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. So we're hoping that Alan will work with us to get better at our strategy and tactics trees. We're really good with our tactics with eligibility, workforce development. We could get much more sophisticated, or that word sophisticated, right, wrong, it masks intelligence, proxy for intelligence, but we can get much better at the tactics and connecting the dots. So we just need help with everything. Just give us ideas and feedback and help me understand what little laws is, and help us understand how we apply throughput accounting to government agencies. I mean, we can have great ideas from anyone or anywhere because we have still a lot to learn.
Thank you.
And we're trying to get into the Odyssey program in July, so anybody that are willing to make some small donations to help fund that.
I know. Well, because we serve the youth. We have a whole program that serves youth who are disadvantaged. When I was talking to Alan, what if instead of just doing these feel-good mentoring programs, blah, 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 that we could give them the tools that they themselves could think about how to problem solve. Some of these kids are coming from very difficult circumstances. Some of our refugee populations, I mean, you want to talk about inspiration. These folks are amazing. How do you give them the tools and resources outside of just here's money to be able to problem solve and navigate sometimes very, very challenging circumstances?
Do you have any connections in education?
Yeah.
We can do it.
So,
Whole state.
yeah, we do. Well, you know, I kind of know the governor there, so it helps. So,
We can help you
okay.
if you can help us.
Okay. We would love it. I appreciate it. I know I'm over. Thanks to all you guys for being here and listening. We appreciate it. Hi.
We've taught 5 million